morning, everyone, and welcome back to Grindhouse, where we drink coffee, talk about movies. My name is Leah Diana, and with my co-host and boyfriend, Shawn Tetrault, we will be winding back the reel to 1942, where a cynical nightclub owner tries to decide whether or not to help his former lover and her fugitive husband escape the Nazis in Casablanca. Let's get into it.
Casablanca, city of hope and despair, located in French Morocco in North Africa. The meeting place of adventurers, fugitives, criminals, refugees lured into this danger-swept oasis by the hope of escape to the Americas. But they're all trapped, for there is no escape. Against this fascinating background is woven the story of an imperishable love and the enthralling saga of 6 desperate people, each in Casablanca to keep an appointment with destiny.
I was willing to shoot Captain Reno, and I'm willing to shoot you. All right, Major, you asked for it.
You knew how much I loved you, how much I still love you.
I know a good deal more about you than you suspect. I know, for instance, that you're in love with a woman. It's perhaps a strange circumstance that we both should love the same woman.
What do you want for Sam?
Don't buy and sell human beings.
That's too bad. That's Casablanca's leading commodity.
You can ask any price you want, but you must give me those letters.
That's all right.
I tried to reason with you. I tried it. Now I want those letters.
Spread the word, you dirty cocksuckers. Tell all your grave robbing friends I want them out of the city now!
The nightmare of insane murder. From the depths of hell. Screaming angel of death. Only at the Grindhouse.
How do you feel about black and white films?
I think it is the greatest thing in the world. I wish they would make more black and white films. I think the only 2 recent black and white films I know of is The Lighthouse, which is the same director that did The Witch. Oh God, and there was like a murder mystery within the last decade that was all black and white. I forget what it was named. But you can see it. You know what I'm talking about, right? Maybe 2 decades ago.
I can't think of which film
but
you're
that's
talking
it.
about.
Not enough people utilize black and white, and I think that's wrong. You need to utilize black and white in movies. I love it.
I'm personally a huge fan of the way black and white looks. Visually, you get so much more contrast. Things look, I don't know, they look so much more like darker and moodier in black and white than you get with color. You can try your best to light it with in color to get across the same feelings, but it'll never give you that same atmosphere.
Especially in a movie from the 40s where the emotion is not conveyed in the lighting and the costuming. It is conveyed in the acting and how well these people portray their feelings on their faces and with their body language.
Yes. There's been a few instances in recent history where, like, other than The Lighthouse or the other film that you were talking
Whatever
about.
film I can think of. Yeah, I can't remember.
Where filmmakers have wanted to use black and white. Two examples that come to mind are recently Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, really?
And Frank Darabont's The Mist. Both of those movies were made originally with the intention that they wanted to do it in black and white.
So why didn't they?
Honestly, studios make the final call because they're paying for everything. And color sells more. Most people don't want to go see black and white.
Fuck studios.
However, with both of those movies on Blu-ray, you can watch the whole film in black and white if you want.
That's awesome.
And for me personally, The Mist is so much better in black and white.
Is that The Mist that I'm thinking of? Stephen King's The Mist?
Yes.
Oh, that's terrifying in black and white.
It's so much better. And
is that in the 90s?
No, that was 2000.
Oh.
I apologize.
Did you just get a text message
I got
from
a message.
someone?
Yes.
From someone we know?
I think it was Mr. Bussy.
Oh. Good morning. I hope the hangover isn't too bad because we saw that you were partying on Instagram. That'll date when this I guess comes out.
Anyway, personally, I think that black and white is a very underutilized thing today.
It really is.
I have always wanted to make something in black and white. I did once for my final project in college.
Was that one of the violence ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I chose to do more of a Sin City kind of thing with that, and I had like the color red be very prominent while everything else was black and white.
I've seen it. It's really good. His old stuff that he made in college and earlier. He might think it's terrible. I think they're cool.
Oh, it's trash.
Oh, it's great. I think we should review one of those for fun. Just because.
I mean, maybe if the people want it. If they let us know. You want to see some of my old crap? And
there's one of them where
talk about
where he has long hair and no beard. It's great. It's great. Ah! Okay.
Anyway, so today the reason we're talking about black and white is because this is the first black and white movie that we're covering. Casablanca.
The classic.
An absolute classic in the world of film. And it's not a surprise why. Mm-hmm. This film was directed by Michael Curtis. I think you say his last name Curtis?
Curtis?
It ends with a Z, so
yeah.
it's a little off-putting.
We're going to say Curtis, but if somebody says we're pronouncing it wrong, or, maybe we should just check Wikipedia, whatever.
That's where I'm reading this off of.
Oh, okay. Sometimes they have pronunciation shit.
From a screenplay by Julius Epstein and Philip G. Epstein.
What's the original title of this?
The original title?
There's an original title of this. I saw it briefly.
It's based on the book Everybody Comes to Rick's.
Yep, Everybody Comes to Rick's.
Is that the original title?
Yes.
Okay.
The working title for the movie was the same as that, Everybody Comes to Rick's. But it has kind of a gangster feeling when you say that.
A little bit.
Casablanca, when I was first a kid and my mom would tell me oh, here are the classics. My Fair Lady, Sound of Music, Casablanca. When you heard Casablanca, you were like, oh, this is going to be romantic and mysterious. And it does live up to its name a little, but yes. I actually have slight issue with this film for the third time watching this.
Which we will get into.
We will get into it.
The original novel was written by Murray Burnett, and it looks like co-written by Joan Allison. And this film infamously stars Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman, and Claude Rains. What a cast.
Oh my god. The minute you see Humphrey Bogart go on the screen with the cigarette in hand and his deadpan face, you're just like, oh.
Bogart. Let me preface, Bogart is probably one of my favorite actors from the early
golden age.
Cinema.
Yep. And there is a reason why that man is the top actor of all time.
Yeah. For me, like, watching his performance is literally like watching a master of his craft. He delivers every line with precision, but it's like, it's not just precision, it's like a fluid precision. Like
he's not reading it off of paper.
Practiced this.
Yeah.
And he always gives you, like, just from the look in his eyes, it's both piercing and alluring. And he draws you into his own, like, personal haunted story without really any effort. And it gets me every time I see him on screen.
He's what you would call a man's man. He is the man. He's the man that the men, I think, in the 30s, 40s, and 50s were like, oh, I want to be like Humphrey Bogart, man. Handsome, like, just, I don't know, perfect. Maybe he had some weird stuff. I mean, he was a smoker. That's a tick off my list. But even that man holding a cigarette in his hand, just like, I'm like, tell me more.
To be fair, who wasn't a smoker at that
in the
time?
40s? Yeah. We did not know about the dangers of cigarettes way back then. So. And the other star of this is Ingrid Bergman. Oh my God, that woman is so beautiful. So in black and white. No color on her face. And I wish I could look like that woman. Oh my God. And she has one of the most beautiful daughters, Isabella Rossellini. That woman is gorgeous too. Saw the two of those women when I was kids and I was like, I want to grow up to look like them. But unfortunately, there is no Italian or Swedish in any of my bloodlines. So sadly, you got the broad-shouldered Scottish girl. Yeah.
So this film was originally released on November 26th, 1942.
Oh.
And it was made on a budget of $878,000 to $1 million, somewhere in that range. Its box office brought in between 3.7 and 6.9 million.
Oh my God.
Monumental fucking success, especially when you think about it in that time.
The early 40s, yeah.
Where do we begin with Casablanca?
Oh my God. Well, my favorite thing about all these old movies, the credits being in the beginning. I love the credits and the music in the beginning. I don't know why. I think it just harkens back to a beautiful age where, here, let's get the bullshit over with so you're not sitting in the theater for 25 minutes reading credits that are fucking yards long to wait for a small clip. Well, looking at you, Marvel.
Well, it's also it's a very classic credit sequence. It's like your standard titles over a flat image format. It's nothing...
Some sort of like decorative background.
Yeah, it's nothing too crazy. It's just enough to get you the information and then bring you into the story.
Yes, that's what you want. Get it over with in the beginning. It's done, it's over with, get to the story.
I loved the voiceover intro over the model of the globe spinning in the fog.
Explaining exactly, telling you exactly what's happening. We're in it's not Nazi occupied.
It's not
Casablanca,
yet occupied.
But there's a Nazi presence in Casablanca, Morocco. I didn't know Casablanca was in Morocco till right now. I thought Casablanca was this beautiful, remote, like, amazing place that nobody knew about.
No.
But, like, the last time I saw this, I was much younger. So I wasn't paying attention to where it was happening in the globe.
Right.
And this was released in 1942. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the World War II was still happening.
Yeah.
So this was filmed and it was released while everything was still happening. So this has lots of like Nazi like storyline, but they're also like doing anti-Nazi stuff too.
Yes.
Which is really kind of, that seems very risky for that time period, but it's America, so America could do whatever they wanted, basically.
Yes. So yeah, this opening, it sets up the world in turmoil.
Yeah.
But to your point, I think it's very fitting that this movie came out when it did, or was made and came out when it did, told the story the way it did, because yes, there is Nazi presence within this story. However, it's primarily an anti-Nazi tale.
Yeah.
But the story itself, having to do with both angles, exists in the same headspace as Rick himself.
Yes.
He's
fighting a personal battle.
Well,
he's fighting a past, present, and future battle. And I will say this, even though the movie's not in color, they use dark and lights to their advantage. Because I've noticed the Nazis wore darker colors. The French, because Casablanca was a French-occupied space back in the 40s.
Yeah.
The French soldiers wore white. The gentleman you just mentioned, who played Captain Renault, the other star of the movie, the third one, I forget his name. He flip-flopped between wearing light and dark colors constantly.
Talking about Claude Rains?
Yes.
Oh.
He flip-flopped between wearing light and dark colors, and I paid attention to that. Like,
because he towed the line.
Because he towed the line. Because he was like, I'm still very supportive of my French roots and my French country, but in order to get anywhere in this world, I still have to be on this line. And, you know, I thought it was a great use of color because even Rick does it. Yes. Where Victor and Ilsa, they wear white most of the time. They're always in bright colors. Rick toes the line. He always has some darker colors in there too. Which I was like, even though it's black and white, they use that to their advantage, and I loved it.
And it's worth noting that we see Rick, he wears white, and he wears, like, the darker gray suit.
Yeah.
Whenever Rick is in his nightclub, he wears the white.
He wears the white,
because in his nightclub...
Nope, there's no politics.
He's both neutral, but then shifts to good.
Yeah.
When he's outside of the nightclub is when he wears the darker colors because he's incognito.
Yep.
He's still neutral, but he's also has to pretend to be on everyone's side.
But I love how even though he is good at heart, you can tell, he still does that same thing that everybody does, like right in the beginning where there's a gentleman there who... The whole thing is based around, like, the voiceover that we're getting is the refugees from Europe are coming down to Casablanca because Casablanca is not Nazi occupied yet. So people can stay there and wait to get exit visas. The problem is getting those exit visas could take years. And some of these people have been waiting there for so long. We see this same couple throughout the whole movie. Eventually, their storyline gets resolved in this.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see there's a separate storyline looking at how hard it is getting out of there with how much grip the Nazis are taking over basically Europe.
Right.
Which, you know, I've never really been a World War fan, 1 or 2. Never really paid attention to it. I pay attention more.
I don't think anybody's a fan of the World Wars.
No, but there are some people who, like, oh, okay, this is more of the history that I enjoy. I've always enjoyed Civil War because it's American history. Because the Civil War and the Revolutionary War are our history. So I pay attention more to those. I never really paid attention to World War history because it was not something that caught my grip. I was like, oh, I'm an American. I really want to focus on this. Now that I'm older, I wish I would have paid attention more because, like, when you're younger, they talk about the Holocaust. They talk about the concentration camps. They talk about how badly, you know, the Nazis, like, ruined people's lives. But you don't see, like, how the rest of the world tried to deal with it. Like, how people just had to be like, well, we're occupied by them, so we're just going to do what they say. Some of these people were just trying to get by. And they had to sell their neighbors out, sell their friends out, you know, just so they could save their own skin. And it is devastating. Devastating. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I can't get really into that kind of history because I'm a very emotional person. I'm very empathic when it comes to certain things. So when I watch stuff that has, like, real world footing, I get very emotional. So I try to stay away from some of that stuff. He can attest, like, if it's going to give me the feels, he's like, okay, no, we're not going to do it. But it is really cool to have that voiceover to see where we're being planted and to know that, you know, this is what's happening. So we open up with the voiceover explaining that people are trying to get to Lisbon because Lisbon is the last safe haven before people can get to America. And America was a big deal. Everybody was trying to get to America. Land of the free, home of free speech, home of everything that, you know, back in the 40s, we were the dream, this country. I don't believe that anymore, but, you know, that's for another day.
Throughout these first few minutes, we actually, we watch, freedom fighters, some citizens being, rounded up, some people being gunned down in the streets by police.
Because 2 couriers with exit visas or transit papers that cannot be questioned at all because they are signed by a high-ranking German official were supposed to get to there. I don't remember why they needed these papers, but they were killed in the desert, and now these papers have made it to Casablanca. And they're trying to find the usual suspects, which seemed weird, but it was just anybody that was dressed in a suit and had a hat on. It was basically anybody that was waiting for the refugee waiting. So they were just rounding up people because they could.
Right.
When it turns out the person that took it or killed the people and took it actually did look like that. But it was like, wouldn't you think if they're trying to round up the usual suspects, you'd change your look?
You'd think.
Like, come on, guys.
This ultimately leads us to the major setting of the film, which is Rick's Cafe or American.
American or Americano?
American.
Rick's Cafe American. Yep.
But it's just spelt differently.
Yes.
I took note of how we're introduced to this. So we're brought into this setting through this long dolly shot that guides us through the front door, which is being held open by a doorman. So we're literally being invited into his world. And we get a lay of the land, what kind of people visit or frequent this establishment, what kind of things go on here, drinking, partying, gambling.
Yep.
And then we're introduced to Rick himself. And we're met here by a bitter, stern man who views everyone and everything seemingly with a stain of loathing.
Yep.
He just is. He exists to live his life.
I have so many problems.
You definitely get the sense that something happened to him, but obviously you don't know what, because you don't know anything about him.
Nope.
He's this prominent figure in this community.
Everyone in Casablanca knows who Rick is.
And it's actually mentioned by his the guy that runs the Blue Parrot.
Yeah,
later on,
his counterpart.
Yeah, he mentions later on that he is a prominent figure in the community.
Yes.
So it kind of gives you an idea of where Rick sits.
Yeah, without Rick, I don't think Casablanca would run the way it does. Even Rick has his hand in the local authorities.
Right.
Which, I guess in that kind of world, you've got to be, I'm sorry, you got to be a little dirty. When you're in a world where the entire of your life is flipped upside down. People are here from all walks of life. You had French people, Russian people, German people. All of these people are waiting to get out of here.
Yeah.
They're still there was one German couple who was very excited. We're only speaking American now. I can't wait to get to America to start our real life. And it was oh my God. But you see how important Rick's gambling and side business and letting people do what they want. But his main thing was, you do what you want, but you don't involve me.
Yes. Which they make it... Alright, so in this sequence where we're introduced to all the major characters, we meet Sammy, we meet
the bartender.
Renault, the detective guy, Renault. We really meet him.
The doorman.
The doorman.
Yep.
The pickpocket.
Yep.
That's like throughout the whole movie.
Constantly stealing shit from people. It's hilarious.
But we also get to really get a sense of Rick's values, his his stances.
Yeah.
So you essentially learn that he says it countless times throughout the movie, but like that he's not gonna be the one to stick his neck out for anybody.
Yep.
There's actually, during this entire sequence, there's a big arrest that happens in his club, and
for the gentleman that stole the papers.
Yes.
Killed and stole the papers.
And the only thing I really noted from this moment was that this arrest kind of it paints Rick as a man who plays to his own benefit.
Yeah.
Like he's living as a neutral party in a world where you're either on one side or the other. And it's really interesting to see this character is like the center of all of this conflict. In a way. He's at the center of it, but you would never know it. He's
like the shadow in the center. Like, yeah, all this stuff is happening and you don't realize that it's all happening around him, centered around him. And it's really interesting, and it also in all of this opening sequence, between all of that, it also shows like what kind of person he is too, because one of the opening things is he goes up to the bar and there's a woman who's at the bar and goes, why didn't you come to see me last night? And he's like, nope. You can obviously see that he was like, I didn't want to. I don't have to if I don't want to, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he gets her and puts her in a cab and sends her home because she's fucking pissed, stinking drunk.
Yes.
And I put a note that says, he is a rough gentleman, but he is a gentleman. He is out for himself, but he's always making sure that things are taken care of. Which, I don't know if that might be like me observing it differently, or if that's how they wanted it to look.
No, I think that makes sense. Like he's a guarded person. Like he's not looking to put his feelings into anything again. Mm-hmm. And we learn why after.
Oh god, yeah.
But I think that moment is very prominent there. Like it shows you that he's very detached. He just does what he has to do. Obviously enjoys pleasures at times, but doesn't get connected to them.
One of the lines that Captain Renault said was trying to figure out who he is or what he did before to have this stoic kind of thing. He says, I'd like to think you killed a man. That's the romantic in me. Like he's trying to romanticize his anger, his I don't get involved kind of thing. Yeah. Even when the guy who owns the Blue Parrot comes in and he's always they set up a scene where he's always trying to get the bar from him. Oh, I'm trying to buy it from him. And it says one of my favorite lines, but not my favorite. It is, suppose you run your business and I'll run mine. Basically, no, I'm not selling out. I'm not doing anything that. I don't have a reason to do that. I'm fine where I am.
Right.
Which kind of sets up for later in the story, too. Which you don't see how much they set up. That's why I love old movies like this. They set it up so beautifully in the first, 20 minutes. And all of this comes later, so much more in the beginning. Like, that's why he said that. That's why he did that. Oh, my God.
Well, they also make it a point to state and show that Rick doesn't drink with patrons.
Yep.
He actually doesn't really talk to people in these opening moments, except for the people
he doesn't
has
get
to.
to know people unless he needs to know people.
And it's really cool because as the film progresses, you start to see him change. You see him opening up.
It's like he's cold-hearted and he starts to warm up. But he doesn't thaw completely.
No.
He still stays guarded, but at least he's allowing people to be like, okay, now that this trauma has presented itself and I'm looking it dead in the face and I'm basically letting this go, essentially, foreshadowing. You see him get a little unguarded, but he's not completely unfrozen. He's still, nope, here's the arm's length, stay there kind of thing.
So this actually kind of brings me to my next note here, but my next note skips a bunch of time. So if there's anything you want to, any gaps you want to fill in here.
The next part I get to is the introduction of the lady. That's where my next note is.
Yes. So essentially, after meeting Rick and getting an idea of who he is and everything, we hear whispers of this character,
this freedom fighter, Victor. Oh God, Laszlo. Victor Laszlo.
And he eventually shows up. Apparently, he had a reservation. He comes in. Him and his lady are seated.
And this is where you kind of put two and two together. Why those important papers were taken? They were to be given to them to get them out because he's a huge fighter against the Nazi forces. And they solidify his importance right away with, once they come in, they get their reservation table, and a gentleman comes up to him and says, "Oh, I'd like to sell you some jewelry," and opens a ring. And I don't know the significance of the symbol on the ring, but I think it was a big deal.
The symbol, they actually show it once before. It's like the symbol of the freedom fighter.
Okay.
Like it's
all right.
It's supposed to be like the. Like
it's a double
T,
cross.
But with,
yeah, it's like a double cross. It has the regular cross with a smaller one at the bottom.
But if you look at it, it's
got
FF.
Oh, I have seen that so many times. I never put that together.
Yep.
I'm fucking dumb, y'all. Ugh.
Random factoid. Many of the actors in this movie who played Nazis were, in fact, German Jews who escaped from Nazi Germany.
That's awesome. Look, okay, all right. Let's backtrack the excitement, Leah. That is amazing that these people that escaped, that are looking for a new life, were like, come on, let's do this. And they got to play them the way they wanted to.
Yeah.
That's kind of... I don't know if cool's the right word to say. I think it's cool, but I don't know if people will be like, no, that's not cool.
I think it's interesting because they're slightly caricatures.
Like, it's like, oh, okay, you at first hand escaped. You know what they acted like. Have at it.
Yeah.
You know?
Another thing is that Rick's Cafe is one of the only original sets in this film. Most of the others were recycled from other movies.
Yeah, probably. I mean, there was... The scene where they're in Captain Renault's office seemed very, very familiar. Extremely familiar. But I think I did know that Rick's Cafe was an original and that it stood for a long time.
Yeah.
But this was filmed in America. This wasn't filmed overseas. Obviously, they couldn't film this overseas.
No.
That would have been a big no-no.
But yeah, so... Victor and Ilsa show up. Sam recognizes her right away.
Sam recognizes her instantly, and it is that best dude friend that goes, "Oh, not this bitch. Oh God, he's gonna be so depressed." Like I blew it out again, didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I can't touch the mic.
I'm gonna touch you all I want. Do you hear me?
Anyway.
I'm in a weird mood today. I'm sorry.
So they're seated. She asks to have Sam come over to her.
And then she says, they're talking, and she says, "Play it one time, Sam, for me, for old time's sake." That was the moment I was like, oh, there it is. There's the line. That's not my favorite line, but it's like, oh. I get so like, when I hear her talk, she's just so elegant in this movie. No, I don't want to back up. Don't give me the backup signal. It's fine.
Well, you're not.
I'm cooing. You can hear me. See?
Only because you're yelling.
Well, that's fine.
Anyway.
It's gonna be a weird episode today, kids.
So, the this is the moment where we're introduced to the song, which is very, very important throughout this movie.
It is very important.
The song is... Oh, God. I forgot the name of it already.
Hang on. I saved it to my YouTube music. As Time Goes By.
As Time Goes By. And this song is utilized so well throughout this movie. So, like, this moment is very important. She has him play it for her. He starts singing it. And Rick walks in and hears it.
He's furious.
And he's pissed.
He's pissed.
I
told you never to play that song. And then they lock eyes. And I think the man shit himself right there.
The thing I like the most about the use of this song is that they worked it into the film's score. So we see it embellished into like a grand symphony that like celebrates their romance a little bit later on, but it's also twisted into like a dark haunting hymn that lingers with Rick, and I loved it.
The use of music is beautiful in this. Yes,
it's so well utilized, and I rarely do movies do this where they take a song that's diegetic like this. Do you know what that means?
Nope. Educate me, baby.
So there's two different types of sound in filmmaking. There's diegetic and non-diegetic. Diegetic sound is a sound that characters can hear. So it's like if it's playing on a radio or from a musician or whatever. If it's a knock at the door, it's all diegetic sound. Non-diegetic is anything that only the audience can hear.
Okay, so if there's background music in a suspenseful horror movie, we only hear it. That's non-diegetic. Okay.
So it's very rare that movies will. It's very rare that movies will take diegetic sound and then implement it into the non-diegetic.
It fuels the narrative of the story.
It really does.
We see it in a flashback later when he's all alone, he's drinking, and he tells Sam, if you can play it for her, you can play it for me.
This is actually my next note.
Yep.
So this moment.
Yep. Where it becomes haunting.
Yeah, we see, after meeting Ilsa again, after all this time, we find Rick alone in the dark of his own world.
Yep. Facing his past.
Facing his demons.
Yep.
Sam comes in. He's his only close friend in the entire world.
Come on, let's go. Let's get you out of here. She's going to come back. I know she's going to come back. Nope. Sam is the best friend. Like, no, dude, don't put yourself through this. We've already been through this. Let's go.
He tries to aid him with just some music and some kind words.
Yeah.
But Rick urges him to like wallow with him. Like
wallow or face it?
Well, somewhat it's wallowing, but like he's making him play the song again, and like just so that he can think about her for the first time in a long time. Like you got to think he's been burying these feelings for however many years it's been, and now he's like I'm just gonna swallow it. It's a pretty down note for this character. And then when Ilsa does show up again in this scene, she comes back, and I kind of chalk it up to him being piss drunk, but
yeah,
he can't help but smile the moment she walks in. And maybe it's because he knew she would come. Maybe it's because he was right. Maybe it's because just seeing her made him happy and he couldn't hide it. I don't know. It's a small moment, but it's strong. It's very telling.
Sorry, I wrote down a quote. It's my favorite quote of the whole movie. I wrote it down, but I knew I wrote it down wrong, so I had to find it again. Oh. I was like, I did miss a couple words in it. So, but then we get into the flashback, and you see that they met in France before it became Nazi occupied, in Paris before it was Nazi occupied. It seems that Rick was at one point a freedom fighter, or he made it seem like when he talked to other people in the bar that, oh, I was just doing everything for money. But it actually seemed like he was someone that was fighting for a resistance at one point. And he meets Ilsa and they fall in love. But the one thing that they kept saying was, oh, remember, we're not asking questions about our past. And I think that was their fatal mistake on why everything happened. If she were to, if they would have talked about their past, maybe this whole thing would have been different.
Yeah.
But it kind of fueled the story along that she had a mysterious past that he didn't know about. And even though he had one too, I believe that he, like, it wasn't as mysterious as hers. I don't know where I'm trying to get at with this, because I'm trying to rethink it, how it went.
Well, I mean, I think they both, so that's the interesting thing about their dynamic, is like they both had shady pasts that they kept from each other. We actually have seen this same element utilized on a smaller level in something that we have both watched many times and enjoyed.
What movie?
How I Met Your Mother.
Oh.
With Victoria.
Oh, Victoria. Oh my God.
When her and Ted first meet in that show, they choose to not talk anything.
And then after they do the countdown to the kiss and she leaves. I remember watching that episode being, oh my God, these two are in love.
I think we could do an entire podcast on that.
Oh my God, I could, because I both love and adore everything about that and hate everything about that. Now that it's been, has it been 10 years since the last episode aired?
Of How I Met Your Mother? No.
Yeah.
Hasn't been that long, I don't think.
When did the last episode of How I Met Your Mother air? We're cutting it close, baby. March 31st, 2014.
Wow.
It's been 8 years. It's been 8 years for me to seethe from that final fucking episode, guys. But we'll go back. But yes, like a lot of movies take that element, and what, like Victoria and How I Met Your Mother is a beautiful example. Like that to me is like, oh my God, I've never seen this before. Now I've watched tons of movies and I've seen it before. But like in this, like that, don't talk about your past, just be in your present. But then having this huge world war around you and everything fall apart, like it just makes those pasts more mysterious in my mind. But you see that the two of them were in a bar. Sam used to work in a bar in Paris, and the Nazis are getting closer and closer to Paris. And by the end, you realize that she says that you need to go, Rick. You know, if they find you, they're going to take you. They're going to put you in a concentration camp, because he was a freedom fighter at one point.
Yeah.
They're getting ready to go. They're getting ready to go on a train to escape Paris. And they're like, okay, the three of us are going to meet and we're going to go. She never makes it. She sends a letter saying, I can't go. I'm sorry. You don't understand. I just can't go. And we as the audience are sitting there going, What? You are madly in love with this man. What is making you not want to go with him? But then in the other scene where they walk into Rick's cafe, she has a husband. So now you're like, what happened? What's going on? Like,
well, it doesn't really become clear that they are her and Victor, husband and wife, until it's actually stated later on.
No, it's pretty clear. To me, it is very clear that they're husband and wife when they're there. I think it's the mentality of the 40s. I was thinking more of putting myself in the 40s. Like, they're traveling together, they're well dressed. To me, they're a couple.
Yeah, well, yeah. I assumed that they were a couple, but they never, like, state we're married until after all of this.
Don't they say that Mr. Victor Laszlo and his wife are traveling together?
I don't
one point in the
think
beginning?
so. I didn't recall hearing that, but maybe you're right. Yeah, what happens after so after the flashback is when Ilsa shows up at the club.
Ilsa shows up.
And they have that kind of
They have
moment.
They have a weird confrontation where she's talking to him like, if you'd only understand, if you only listen. He was like, no, I don't care.
Yeah,
no, I don't care.
He kind of calls her on her shit.
Yeah, he's like, you left me standing there alone in Paris with no explanation. At least you could have explained what happened. But they had the rule, no past. So I don't know whose side to take here. I'm like, am I mad at him or am I mad at her? Like, I don't know. He's unreasonably angry. I'm sorry, there's an eyelash in my eye. I'll back it up. He's unreasonably angry at her for not telling her the reason, but she's unreasonably mad at him for, like, not understanding. But it's like, you both... Communication, people. All it takes is a little communication. If she had sat there and said, in front of her husband, we were married before we met.
Yeah.
And I thought he was dead. That's all she could have had to say. Even when they met.
Right.
It would have changed the dynamic of the story, but it would have solidified it as, look, we're in the middle of a war. I thought he was dead. My life was over at that point, and I met you and you breathed new life into me.
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly what they say together in another scene. I know I'm jumping ahead because I just get this. It just aggravates me that these two are like on different sides of anger, but it's like, if you would just talk.
Yes, I completely agree, and I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, I definitely understand being so angry with each other, because when you throw feelings into the mix, when you throw like emotion into the mix of something as unemotional as a no past rule,
it's gonna bite you in the ass.
They both heavily became emotionally invested in each other.
Yes.
So like getting hurt still is just as painful.
Yeah.
So I get the retaliation.
Yeah,
I understand.
I understand, but I feel, I don't know, maybe I'm just too emotional. Too like, oh, guys, come on. Maybe it was different, like, back the train up. That was a weird text. Maybe it's just, I wish that there was more communication for this, but I understand a story in the 40s. You wanted the fantasy. There was this whole element of extreme fantasy in storytelling, to where it's like, this doesn't seem right now, but back then it's like, oh, what a love story. Like, you know, it's sign of the times kind of thing. Let's see.
I'm going to be honest. Most of the rest of my notes aren't step by step. They're more about the entire film as a whole.
Yeah, my notes, I have a little bit of other notes, so I'll keep going here. So he says the most famous line of the movie at least 4 times in the flashback, because it solidifies that was her nickname for him. Oh, that was his nickname for her. He says, "Here's looking at you, kid," many times, and I believe that was his way of saying I love you to her. And every time he said it, her face would light up. I mean, it was so exciting. But the last one he said to her in the cafe before they had to get onto, or not the cafe, like, yeah, the bar, before they got needed to go to the train, he said it to her and she started crying, heavily crying and hiding her face. And he says, why don't we get married? Why don't we escape? And you can tell something's wrong. So obviously it was a little before then that she finds out her husband is still alive. He escaped a concentration camp. He's in hiding. We find this out. But she doesn't tell Rick, and she kind of leaves him at the platform at that point. Which, I mean, if something ever happened to you and Shawn's dead, my life is over, essentially. I don't know how I can keep going on without my gremlin. But if somebody told me, like, oh, I had moved on, I'd found someone else, and they said, Shawn's not dead, he's still alive, he's in hiding, I'd do the same thing she did. I would. Like, sorry, I gotta break your heart, buddy. I gotta go. Bye. See ya. Like, I get so mad at her, but I'm like, What would you do in the same scenario? Probably the same thing. In a fantasy world, guys, we're not talking real life. But from that point, I don't really, once the flashback ends, they come back. I don't really remember what exactly happens, but we get to a point that Victor and Ilsa are to meet Captain Renault at the station at 10 a.m. the next morning. And there's all sorts of threats being thrown around. Like, oh, Victor, you know, it's not safe here, but it's not safe in Lisbon. Like, what are you going to do? And they give him basically a way out. Like, oh, confess who all the other leaders of all the other freedom fighters and all the other countries are, and we'll let you go. We'll give you papers and you can escape. He's like, I'm not doing that. He goes, I was in a concentration camp with all sorts of torture tactics. I didn't say anything then. What makes you think I'll say it now? And they basically say, oh, because it's for you and your wife. So they know exactly how to push his buttons because he is madly in love with his wife. So It's like, okay. So now you're starting to see where the rest of this is going. Also, side note, the dude that got arrested for the papers in the beginning, he gave the papers to Rick. Rick has had these papers the whole movie.
Yes.
So now we find out they're being told, Rick has those papers. You've got to convince Rick to give you those papers. Now that Ilsa's back and he's mad at her, what's going to happen? So,
just a side note here. How did you feel about the relationship between Bogart and Bergman in this movie? Like,
the chemistry between the two actors, palpable. It is a beautiful chemistry. They hate each other with a passion, and then they love each other with a passion. I don't think that's the case in real life.
Apparently, all didn't see it that way.
Really?
So at the time that this movie was being made, Humphrey Bogart was married to actress Mayo Methot.
Yeah, I saw Mayo. Yeah.
And I guess throughout this whole production, she continually accused him of having an affair with Ingrid Bergman. Often confronting him in his dressing room before a scene was going to be shot. So, like, naturally, Bogart would come out to the set all enraged and agitated. But despite their obvious chemistry on screen, they hardly spoke when they were in between takes.
Yeah, I think I heard that the jealousy of Bogart's wife was so bad that Ingrid and him just thought it better if... But that chemistry was incredible.
I mean, that little story just speaks to the acting chops of both of them.
Like, they can turn it off. Like, oh, no, okay, yeah, no, he's the guy I'm acting besides. But in the movie, like, they look so like, you would think they are a real couple in some of those scenes, especially when so there's a whole scene where she goes back to the bar, she meets with Bogart, they pretty much talk about their past. It is a scene where you would think these two are married and in love in real life. It's just so beautiful, especially when they're dancing in the flashback. And there's a scene where she puts his head on hers. It's no kissing, no nothing. It's just their heads are touching and they look just, it's so passionate. It almost feels like I shouldn't be watching this. This is very intimate. That's how good their chemistry was to me. But in real life, I knew that there was no chemistry in real life. I think I remember reading that going, wait, really? There's no chemistry?
Yeah.
Because it was very normal for actors and actresses married, get into a movie and all of a sudden you have Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Yeah. That's
not the greatest movie.
Huh?
Not the greatest movie.
I thought it was kind of badass. What do I know about movies, guys? What do I know? There was one scene which I might actually not mention it because it's my favorite scene. And I think it changes the whole dynamic of the movie. So I'll wait till the end. I also put 2 notes. This man, Humphrey Bogart, loves pain. Oh my God. And then it's, this man leaves drinks everywhere in his own bar. His bartenders must be pissed. Every scene he's taking a sip and a drag. He only takes a drag and a sip and he leaves it there. I'm like, this man must just be dotted with fucking wine glasses or booze glasses everywhere in this place.
It's his bar. He can do what he wants.
True, but it's like he finally sits down to have a drink and someone's like, I need to speak with you. And he's like, oh, let's go. I'm like, I can't even finish my...
I can't even have a drink.
Sorry, kids. That was me just puking. Can't use that, can you? No. He's just leaving his drinks fucking everywhere. Everywhere. It's ridiculous.
Can't even have a drink in my own bar.
I know. Oh, let's see. Yeah, I have to wait for that. So then there's another scene. We're bouncing around because I don't really remember a lot of the sequence. There's another scene where the Gestapo, it's part of my favorite. I can't even mention it. But there's a scene after my favorite scene. The Gestapo tells Captain Renault, close this place down. You have to close it down. If Laszlo's here for any longer, it's going to raise problems. Close it down. So they close Rick's bar down completely. And he says, why are you closing my bar down? To Captain Renault. He's like, I don't understand what's happening. I'm shocked that you have gambling here. And he's like, you've known about it all along. He's like, no, I am absolutely stunned. And then the person who cashes out goes, here's your winnings, Captain Renault. And he goes, thank you very much. I am shocked. I'm just like, what just happened?
Well, all right. So
it's an example of how deep Captain Renault is in Rick's pocket and vice versa.
Well, that's actually a prime example of, like, this is first and foremost a romantic drama.
Yes.
It's the type of timeless story of love against all odds that, like, movies like Titanic fall under. But it still makes room.
Feeling.
But it still makes room for levity and a little bit of action.
Like, there's some funny jokes. It does.
It's not completely hard drama.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that.
Yeah, I like that there's a couple of little quips. After this all happens, I have to say this about this movie. I love this movie, but it gets a little boring at a point. Like, there is some points when you're like...
Well, to be fair, a lot of the stuff that we watch is, like, stimulation to the max.
8-legged stimulation last week, which I'm still creeped out about.
Well, I'm talking like a lot of the stuff, we watch a lot of horror movies, which is overstimulation. We watch the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is overstimulation in a whole nother way. Like,
we watched Black Widow last week because we're trying to, like, catch up to before we see Spider-Man and before we see Doctor Strange, and compare Arachnophobia to Black Widow. They're both spiders. To this movie, and you can see how cinema has, like, it's a slow train, and now it's just a fucking bullet train. It goes thousands of miles per hour. But bullet trains don't go thousands of miles per hour, you know what I mean? But it's like you go from, we watched Meet Me in St. Louis to Arachnophobia to Casablanca to our next one, which I've never seen the next few that we're actually reviewing, and I'm really excited. That's why I'm very excited for this recording day we're having, because I'm so excited to see new films that I'm like, I don't know anything. I only know the actor, actress, and I only know that this is the element of it. That's it. I'm really excited. But, like, having movies like this, you have to put yourself like, okay, this was the 40s. They couldn't handle killer 8-legged spiders or, a fucking space station falling from the goddamn sky. They would lose their mind. That would be like War of the Worlds shit, and I don't know if people could handle that. So, to me, tad boring and a little drawn out at times, but the cinema we watch is like go, 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 go.
Yes. Yeah, this is like, it's about the love story.
Yeah.
It's about it's not so much about the political turmoil that it takes place in.
But it has a big, like, back then, it was a big deal.
Yes.
Which, that probably was one thing that captivated a lot of people back then.
Oh, sure.
Oh, there's a love story and political drama? That's amazing.
Well, that's why Titanic works.
Why does Titanic work?
It's a heartfelt love story set in the middle of a real-life not natural disaster.
It got me to adore anything Titanic. And when did that movie come out? That was like 97, so I was in middle school. I was obsessed with the Titanic in middle school. Obsessed. So obsessed that I wanted to take a boat out one day and go into one of those little submarine ships. You know, a little envious of James Cameron right now. But I'm a lot older and I don't want that now. Let's see. So we go through all this, and then we get to, there's a secret meeting happening for the freedom fighters, and you find out that the doorman is one of the freedom fighters, and he and Laszlo are going to the secret meeting. So while they're going to the secret meeting, she, Ilsa, is going to meet with Humphrey Bogart, and she is doing anything she can to get those papers, because she knows he's not going to give them to Laszlo at all.
Right.
But she's like, maybe I can use my love for him to kind of convince him. She tries. Guys, she tries everything to the point of pulling a gun on him. And he's like, go ahead. Goes right here to his heart and says, pull the trigger. Do it. She can't do it because she's still madly in love with this man. I'm trying to remember the next step of the movie, guys. I'm sorry. Next step of the movie is secret meeting goes badly, and the doorman and Laszlo end up back at the bar, and he's trying to help them, and Bogart's character Rick opens the door and says, oh, so-and-so, the doorman, the back light wasn't turned off. You need to come up here and turn it on. He goes, but the other guy does it religiously. Well, today he forgot. Basically, I think it's a signal for him to get up here and help me now.
Yeah.
They definitely have their little signals, like Sam, the bartender, and him, all three of them, like they have ways to communicate to get around the turmoil that's happening.
Yes.
So when he comes up the stairs, sees that Ilsa's there, and goes, make sure she gets home. I'll take care of him. Which basically leads to the two of them talking, and says that that she mentioned him about their love or something, or mentioned that they were involved at some point.
I think he just states that, like, he knows something happened between them.
Yep.
And he can tell that they love each other.
But he's not angry. He's like, I understand.
Well,
he's the most understanding dude.
Because he's like, at that point she thought I was dead.
Yeah.
Like, I understand her finding comfort in someone else.
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely, like, I would definitely understand that.
Yeah.
But
I would too, but it's like, but in that type of world, in that type of like scenario that they're going through a fucking war. At that point, their mentality is probably different. Like, nope, I was in a concentration camp. I thought I was dead too. I thought my life was over. If she can find find happiness. Now, it'd be a little tough. Like, I don't know here and now, but then it was basically like fight or flight, like max level. So they get her back there and they have a discussion, and a plan is formulated in Bogart's head, or Rick's head, on how to actually get them out. He does a lot of thinking. Now he knows the full story of why Ilsa left. Now he understands what actually happened. That unfortunately, he wasn't left for another man. He was the other man. He was something that, it was an unfortunate circumstance, or not an unfortunate circumstance, but unfortunately, the previous love is still alive, and she had to make a tough call. So I think he does a lot of thinking. He understands, hatches this plan that is calculated beautifully. Like,
it's incredible.
This is where my interest came back. I was like, wait a minute. I've seen this many times before. I don't remember this. I don't remember this whole thing happening, but maybe it's because I'm older. I understand. So we get to, he turns around and tells her we're, as in Rick and her, are getting on a flight and your husband's going to stay behind. So they get everything situated where, okay, Renault, you're going to arrest Laszlo. We're going to get on the plane. Sure, no problem. It's not what happens. They get to the bar and Rick pulls the gun on Renault and says, they're getting on the plane. You're going to sign the papers. Has this whole plan hatched. Says, you got to call the airport now and get the plane ready, which Renault calls the Gestapo, the Nazi leader who's there. He's, call off your men. He pretty much said, we can do this deal. You can have him if you call off your men. It was the smartest thing Rick did to keep his men away.
Right.
And it was the Gestapo who said, get everybody to the airport now. Get me my car. He shows up there when they're signing all the papers and getting everything prepared. He shows up alone. There's no other troops. There's no one else there. It's Renault. It's the Gestapo. It's Laszlo. It's Ilsa. And it's Rick. And Renault, the whole time you're like, oh my God, Renault, that like Rick's life is over. Renault is going to kill this guy. And Rick pulls the gun on the Gestapo. You're not doing anything. Stop it. And Renault just lets it happen. And I'm like, okay, all right.
It's worth interjecting, like, before the guy actually shows up.
Yeah.
You have the big infamous scene in
yes.
this movie.
Yeah. Whoa. I want to get to that one. I want to get there. I'll get there.
You skipped over it.
I skipped over it for a reason.
Oh, well.
Well. Look, we got to follow the formula, Shawn. Follow the formula.
What formula?
The formula you made up.
Back to formula.
So yeah, before then, there is the most passionate, heartfelt scene between two people. So iconic that before they took out the Roman Chinese theater ride at Hollywood Studios and Disney, it was one of the last scenes. It was one of the big scenes that you saw. It was Laszlo was getting everything ready with Renault for the papers. It was Rick and it was Ilsa alone standing there. And that's when she's like, no, what's going to happen to you? He goes, no. He says the line, the infamous line that makes me excited every single time. I gotta find it. One of the lines is,
I mean, I know one of them.
Oh, no, it's all jumbled. I'm going to go with mine. I'm going to get it wrong. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life, you will regret not getting on that plane. And then the other thing is she says, well, what about you? We'll always have Paris. 2 out of like 5. 2 of the most iconic lines. And then before they come back, he looks at her one more time and said, here's looking at you, kid. And goosebumps every time Bogart says that to her. Every time. Those 3 lines, boom, boom, boom. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but for the rest of your life, you will regret it. Oh, those are words to live by, really, honestly.
Yeah.
And you've heard them numerous times. That line, we'll always have Paris. Here's looking at you, kid. They've said those lines many times in other movies for references. Everyone knows here's looking at you, kid.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like, you feel like at this moment that this movie's going to end on a sour note for Rick.
No. Because at that point, Laszlo comes back. Renault's standing there. Everything's all set. Says, you guys need to get on that plane. So they go. They get on the plane. The Gestapo shows back up. And it's Rick and it's Renault. And Renault's like, oh, he held me at gunpoint. Oh, they're on that plane. Oh, we have to stop them. Why didn't you stop them? Gets on the phone to take care of it. The Gestapo pulls out a gun. Rick pulls out a gun. Boom. Shoots him dead. And before Rick's like, all right, what's your next move? His troops show up and he says, the Gestapo's been shot. Round up the usual suspects. And that was the moment I went, because of my favorite scene, Renault's had enough. He's absolutely had enough. And he is fighting on the same side that Rick is now, that Laszlo and Ilsa are now, to stop the Nazis from invading Casablanca, or even stop them from taking over. Basically, they wanted to take over the world.
Yeah.
At that back then. And one of my other favorite lines, my phone is not cooperating, is when Renault and Rick are walking away into the fog. Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Because that leaves it open for interpretation.
Yeah.
Because now, at this day and age, you know that the war was won by the Allies, that the Nazis were defeated, that everything, stopped. I wouldn't say get back to normal. Nothing over there ever got back to normal. It was devastating. But it's an impactful line. Because to me, that line inspires hope. There is a hope behind that line. When at a time, I don't think the World War II ended until 54, right?
I couldn't give you a date.
Let's fact check this. What year did World War II end? 1939 to 1945. September 2nd, 1945 is when it ended. So this movie was made pretty much in the middle of the conflict. Yeah. So this line definitely makes you hopeful. And it probably inspired a lot of hope in people that saw it. And then when the war ended, this just seems like a love story with a hopeful ending.
Yes.
With a definite hope ending, which makes me really happy. That's the end of the movie.
Something I want to bring up is that I don't know how you feel watching movies like this, but for me, these types of stories, these golden age films, they always make me nostalgic for a time that I've never experienced.
It makes you feel like you were born in the wrong era.
Yeah, to some degree. On some level, I wish that people still dress the same way, or
yeah,
the guys, for example. Everybody always basically wore a suit of some kind. I wish we could still wear those hats. They look so fucking awesome.
The women wore those beautiful dresses and always had their hair done.
Yeah,
they always look so polished.
And I'm sure it's just in cinema, but they spoke so eloquently with these little quips, and everything felt so powerful. And now we speak in hashtags. What happened to us?
And we wear pajamas. My usual clothing all week. Well, I work in a warehouse, so
yeah, I
wear hoodies and leggings. I work in a warehouse that it's not very warm. It can be cold at times. And I was telling a couple coworkers yesterday, they're like, oh, do you dress like this all the time? I'm like, I love to wear dresses and I like to dress up. They looked at me like I had 3 heads. I'm like, yes, I own a collection of dresses, but I don't wear them usually unless it's a little warmer. Right now it's middle of winter and it's not snowing anymore. So
it literally just stopped.
It's been snowing since 5 a.m. No, 6 a.m. About 6 a.m. So about 4 or 5 hours it's been snowing, which is kind of nice because this is the first snow. And we're recording this on Christmas Eve. It's so magical.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. But I would love to dress more in the dresses and stuff. You've seen me dress I love to do that. But I have a job where there's no point in me wearing really nice clothes. I wear clothes that I can afford to kind of get beat up and stay warm and shit. And, you wear all black. The outfit you see is basically kind of what he wears. He's very all black. I would love it if we could dress up one day. And I've told my friends this many times. I want to have a day where the guys dress in nice suits, the girls dress in nice dresses, and we have a fancy kind of cocktail and dinner thing. Kind of like Clue. Kind of like that. Where you go nice and proper and polished and, talk about pip pip cheerio, the weather and politics and all these lovely things. But that's just, I don't know. These eras, these movies do make me nostalgic for that. I mean, even watching Meet Me in St. Louis, that was early, that was 1904. Yeah. Oh my God. To see no cars on the road, horse and buggy, no technology, to entertain yourself. You danced and sang with your family, played games.
I'm not gonna lie, that sounds like hell.
I think it sounds lovely, and I'm dragging his ass with me. But yeah, it does make me nostalgic. That really does.
So, something that I did this time watching this movie is I tried my best to look at the movie from a different perspective,
like
in another way.
Okay.
And it actually kind of took me down a rabbit hole a little.
What'd you do, Tetrault?
Well, I did a couple of things. Like, firstly, I looked at the movie. Most people watch this, and it's Ilsa and Rick's love story.
Did you focus on another story?
I focused on a few different things.
Okay.
So, I noticed that you could look at this movie as being, as the audience, as being caught between two great love stories. You have Rick and Ilsa, and you have Ilsa and Victor.
Yes.
On one end, you have these two people who came together when they both really needed someone the most. They fell passionately in love, and then they were ripped apart by circumstance.
Yep.
Only to reconnect later in life, but not be able to be together.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you have a man and woman who fell in love, got married. They were torn apart by a world falling into chaos.
Yeah.
Then came back together.
Only to run for their lives.
Together.
Yep.
And
they've been on the run for a very long time then.
And these are you could make two completely separate movies here. And
I didn't think that.
It's incredible. In ways, it's like you're, like you have a story that it's, how to phrase this correctly. You're caught between love and the defiance of war, which would be Ilsa and Victor, and then love at all odds, which is Rick and Ilsa.
Yeah.
Which actually leads me to a question for you.
Okay.
Which is the greater love story? Rick and Ilsa or Ilsa and Victor?
I still say Rick and Ilsa. Because while Victor and Ilsa's love story is gorgeous, it's a quick, smaller one. Because we don't know how long Rick and Ilsa were together. We also don't know how long her husband was, like, taken from her and how long she thought he was dead. I'd love to see that side of it, but I think the great love that you can never have back of Ilsa and Rick is stronger because people will always root and pine for it. Like, Victor and Ilsa got their basically happy ending. They flew away to Lisbon, and you essentially think, okay, they're in America. They're home free. They're happy. Rick now has to live with the fact that he had to let his absolute love go for the sake of it was the wrong place, wrong time for the two of us. Which I think is a stronger love story. That's why this one was focused. But you have a point. I would love to see that smaller story of Victor and Ilsa. I would love that.
Okay.
What is your input?
Well, I'm inclined to agree, but to play devil's advocate, I don't agree that Ilsa and Victor's story is a smaller one.
Okay.
I definitely have to say that theirs would be a much grander love story, only because you have to take into account their meeting, falling in love, which we never see,
and ripped apart because of war.
Being ripped apart for years.
Okay. Maybe small love story was not the right word.
In the context of this movie, it's a smaller love story because we're following Rick.
Yeah.
But if you were to tell their story instead, it would be much grander.
Where Rick was a background character like Victor. Victor was kind of a background. Sorry, guys. Victor was kind of a background character. Like, yes, there was an emphasis on him being important, but he wasn't the important of the love story.
Yeah.
It was Ilsa and Rick, who that's where the camera's focused. That's where when they put the fog beauty filter, it was on the two of them. It was never on the other characters.
Right.
So yeah, maybe small love story is the worst way, is not the best way to put it. But honestly, like, that would be a notch in how would you remake this? Focus on Victor and Ilsa's love story. Maybe. That might be kind of like, okay, so I always go back to this goddamn fucking story every time. Gone with the Wind was a book, and then they made it into a movie. Well, there is a book called Rhett Butler's People that focuses on Rhett's story, not Scarlett O'Hara's. And I owned the book at one point, and I was never able to read it because it got damaged in a flood. The big flood that we had around here in 2009. I lost a lot of books, a lot of movies to that, unfortunately, because I lived in the basement. There was literally nothing I could do. But that book was all about his perspective of what happened in Gone with the Wind, not from Scarlett's perspective. And I love when people reimagine, like, a beautiful story, and then you reimagine it. Sort of like why I really do like Disney's interpretation of all these fairy tales. You have Sleeping Beauty, and you have Maleficent, which we just recently watched Maleficent because I was like, I've always wanted to see it. It wasn't the best, but it was a kind of an awesome concept based on it, to where, you know, she was never the bad guy. She was just someone who
Got fucked over.
got royally fucked over. But I like that. I like how people are, okay, these stories have been told time and time again. Let's do it a little differently. Let's flip it a little. And I think that would be incredible to do with some of these older stories. Tell it from a different perspective. Tell it from her perspective, not his. I think that would be amazing.
I also have an experiment.
Oh, I have homework?
No. I want you to do this right now.
All right.
It's a small experiment, but it's something I started to formulate towards the end of the movie.
Okay.
Just having ridden through everything, that I started to think about it in a different way. And it's completely ridiculous, and I think a lot of people would probably disagree with the entire thing. But,
okay.
So imagine for a moment.
Imagine if you will.
Just imagine everything you just saw. Imagine for a moment that Ilsa was actually just a manipulative harlot. Take a look at the film again in your mind, and from that perspective, does she really love either Victor or Rick, or is she just playing the both for her own benefit?
What was her benefit? To escape?
To get out. I'm not saying I think it's true, but it's an interesting way to look at it.
She does pull a gun on Rick at one point. The only character that can come to mind that I'm trying to, like, interject, like, the attitude or the manipulativeness is Claudia from Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah.
Kind of like that whole, I hate you, but I love you still. Like, that line. Like, I'm trying to interject that attitude towards Ilsa. And I'm having a hard time, but I can see where it could be, like, okay, every time she gets emotional, she's just turning a show on. I wouldn't be able to do that unless the audience saw more of the manipulation in the background, but it would be, I know a lot of people are going to be like, no, that's not how the story goes. Why are you doing that?
It's not.
But it's interesting.
It's an interesting thought.
It is.
What if she was literally just playing these people to get to America?
What if she's the reason why she tipped off the Gestapo about the papers being stolen and they're at Rick's? What if she knew about Rick's I never knew you were here. But what if she did know that he was there and she was the whole time trying to manipulate the whole situation? It's interesting. You could, why do you do this? My mind goes on a fucking spiral. I hate this.
Just a fun experiment.
But yeah, no, that would be really interesting. Because the younger woman who had just gotten married to the dude 8 weeks earlier, who was trying to escape Lisbon, you could also solidify that she was manipulative too, because she sob storied to Rick and manipulated him, and then he rigged the gambling game so they would get more money. What if all the women that were trying to escape were out for their own means and using the men around them as, oh, well, you're just collateral and a means for me to escape?
Well, and the reason this is fun to just speculate on is, like, you got to think, she came to Rick because she knew that she could play on the emotions he had for her. So, like, and that's a prominent scene. She is literally trying to manipulate him until she, like, gives into her own feelings. Because
the only way Laszlo was going to escape ever, like, if he didn't have Ilsa, he wasn't getting out of there. Rick wasn't going to help. He was going to be a neutral party. He wasn't going to give a shit.
Exactly.
So if Elsa wasn't there to be able to pull the strings, what have you done?
And who's to say that her giving into her own feelings wasn't just the next step in her manipulation?
Oh, God.
It's just, I know it's not the truth.
It is not the truth.
But it's
isn't.
a fun thing to think about.
But movies, stories, books, anything, it's all up to your interpretation.
Yes.
Like, you can have the person who wrote it and the director stand there and go, no, this is cut black and white, this is what it's about. But somebody still go, for example, Marvel, but what if? But it's always interesting to see other people's interpretations of stories. That's why we have so many stories. Some of these stories are the same thing repeated over and over and over again from a different perspective. Except for Arachnophobia, what the fuck? Just saying, I'm still mad about that movie.
Over it.
I'm still mad.
I think we're at the point of closing questions.
Yes.
Overall thoughts on the film?
It's a great film, but it's a little boring for me. I think it's because I'm not of that era. I'm used to more action-packed, more... It is a great film. People are going to disagree with me constantly. I find Casablanca to be beautiful but boring. It's a story we've all heard. It's a love story that's happened in countless stories, books, movies, everything. I still love it, but I think it's one of those movies where I'm like, I've seen Casablanca, I'm okay. I don't have to put this one on again. The story doesn't pull me too much, so I like it, but it's okay.
I think recently, and it's a very small recently, but I think I've begun to build a much greater appreciation for Golden Age cinema. I don't think I'm ever gonna just like pick up a Golden Age film and watch it for no reason. But when I do watch them now, I find so much more to them than I ever would have when I was a kid. I'm kind of glad that a lot of them I never saw when I was younger, because I never would have been able to appreciate them the way I do now. This, I feel, is an absolute classic for a fucking reason. There's a reason that people flock to this movie and revisit it time and time again. It's a grand love story, which I don't know, so many people can't live without. This is probably, and like the beauty of it is that it's not just a love story. There's so much more to it. It's a film noir. And film noir is a dying art.
It is.
And this is one of the truest examples of it.
Yeah.
Most people think film noir and they think, oh, gritty detective stories. They're not always that. Like, this is a beautiful example of a timeless classic.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, it's not timeless, but somehow it is.
Yeah.
I think it's a great film, and it's a piece of history that if you haven't seen it, you should at least once. What are your favorites?
So my favorite scene. Maybe that again. I feel like I had snot coming out of my nose. So my favorite scene is the French troops have taken over Sam's piano, and they are singing the Germans have taken over Sam's piano, and they're singing the German national anthem. Loud, proud, above everything else. The band has stopped playing, and everybody looks very, very nervous. So Victor and Ilsa are in the bar, and Victor, you can see he's had it. He goes up to the band, and he tells them something whispered, and they start singing the French national anthem as loud as they can. And then the whole bar of Ricks joins in. Even a woman who was starting to see and sleep with someone on the German side started singing and screams "Vive la France" a few times. And everybody gets just very patriotic. And that's when the Gestapo closes the bar, because he sees the patriotism as an act against Nazi Germany. And that's my favorite because, one, all I can think of is, my penis is bigger than your penis. It's ridiculous, I know, but that's what I think. But it just goes to show how a small bit of "we won't let you do this to us" can take over the small amount of passion and patriotism for something like that. Like, the Nazis wanted to steamroll over everything and take over. But there was resistance no matter what in all corners of the earth. Didn't matter. They were people that were resisting. And I love that because it shows that timeline, because this was released in the middle of World War II, that people were still standing and saying, no, you're not going to do this. You're not taking over. Now that I've depressed everyone, my favorite line in this movie to this date will always be when he's sitting there wallowing in his drink with Sam, when the lights are down. He's in the dark. Rick's in the dark.
Oh, I know which one you're going to say.
Yep. And she's coming to the bar and she's standing there trying to talk. And he goes, "Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine." I love that line. I have since I was a teenager. I really have. That to me just portrays the "I forgot about you till you fucking walked in, you bitch." I suppressed everything, and looking at your face brings back everything. And that man, from that moment he sees her, he's never the same. Like, that's it. That is definitely my favorite line. Has been, because of the power that Bogart portrays in that line, the passion, the anger, just speaks volumes about how the rest of the story is going to go at that point. So,
yeah.
What is your favorites?
So it's hard for me to pinpoint a favorite scene. There are so many that are just so prominent from this movie. Honestly, probably that if I had to pick one right now, it would probably be that scene where he's wallowing in the dark, and Sam's playing.
You just like
song.
dark things.
It's just it's such a strong scene. Like, and I'm talking from the moment we see him sitting there alone to after Ilsa leaves. Like, that is such a strong sequence. And it's so emotional. It's so telling. Not just because we get a fucking 15-minute flashback in there.
Yeah.
But we get so much out of Bogart in that sequence. I have a list of my favorite lines here. First being, I'd like to think that you killed a man. It's the romantic in me.
Yep. That's a good one.
It's funny. It's telling.
It sets up how flip-floppy, but how comedic that the captain character is.
Yeah. He is a very funny character throughout the whole movie.
You don't know where he's gonna go, and you're like, "What side are you on? Yeah. What are you
doing?" There's a moment where I forget. Rick is talking to. I think he's talking to Renault and I think the Gestapo at their table. But it's just part of their dialogue. But he says, not particularly, but I understand the point of view of the Hound too. Like it just shows that like he's like it puts him in his neutral place. Like he's understanding of every point of view. When he's first talking to Ilsa and Victor at their table, Victor's talking about his dealings and his like stature.
Yeah.
And Rick's like, we all try, you succeed.
Yeah.
Here's looking at you, kid. That's always going to be infamous. It's one of the best lines in this movie. From the flashback, Frank, for your thoughts. In America, they'd bring only a penny. I guess that's all they're worth. I love that.
Oh shit! Yeah, that was an interesting quote.
Of course, the big comedy line that we both really enjoyed. On what grounds do you have to shut me up? I'm shocked to find that there's gambling going on here. You're winning, sir. Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Shocked.
Next one I've got is it's during the big scene where Ilsa is trying to convince him to give her their papers. She pulls the gun on him, and he's like, all right, I'll make it easy for you. Go ahead and shoot. You'll only be doing me a favor.
Yep.
It's a very film noir line.
It's a very you line.
It's a very me line.
It's a very you line.
And then when they're there with Renault, and it's like right before, it's when he pulls the gun on Renault.
Yep.
But like, Louis, I wouldn't like to shoot you, but if you take one more step, I will. And my absolute favorite line of the whole movie is the same as yours. Of all the gin joints and all the towns and all the world, she walks into mine.
Oh,
it's such a good line.
It's the opening line to a book, in my opinion.
It is.
Oh.
And that line is so powerful and so prominent, it echoes through cinema.
Oh my god.
That is, if any line other than here's looking at you, kid, that line is what's going to make this film remembered forever.
I think I've heard that specific line in a movie where the guy goes, of all the bars in all the world, you had to walk in here.
Yeah.
And it harkens me back to, oh my god, that's like a direct, twisted, modern quote of that. I love it.
People have reiterated and reused lines from this movie ever since this came out.
Time and time again.
And
I love it.
It never gets old. You always know what it's harkening
like,
back
to. Casablanca.
Does it work?
Yo, God, yeah. Oh, yeah. It works on several different stories. Now that you've pointed it out, thanks. It works. Flat. No explanation. It works.
Yet again, I agree.
We need to disagree on something.
We will eventually. This movie works if you like Golden Age cinema. It's not gonna work.
It's not gonna work for modern, because there's holes in this for modern day.
Yes, most modern viewers, unfortunately,
are gonna have the same fight I did about Her and Him. Communication. That's the biggest one. That's a huge plot hole. Huge. But back then, secrecy was key in a World War II world. So,
do you recommend it?
Absolutely. It might, to me, be kind of a boring film in my eyes, but timeless. It's a classic. If you like Golden Age cinema, this is a good one to watch. Even if you're like, oh, I'm in the mood for something different. Here you go. This is different. It's not fast paced. It's something you can put on. I would recommend, and this is like telling for right now, but maybe it's because of it. This is the movie that, oh shit, I got like 15 people's gifts to wrap, and I need to like put something on. Put this on with a glass of wine while you're wrapping gifts and having a quick dinner on Christmas Eve, or maybe a couple days before. This is the perfect movie. It's got parts where you can like kind of look away and not really pay attention, But there are parts that you're just going to want to be like, get your wine glass and be like, oh yeah, this is great. Like, that's what I recommend it for. It's a rainy day film. It's a nice film to snuggle up on a couch and just watch and experience this beautiful piece of cinema that they don't make this type anymore.
I definitely recommend it as a fan of film in general. It's a piece of history. Like, you need to see it if you call yourself a film buff.
Yes.
I recommend it to people who love romance or
maybe a little bit of war.
Yeah,
like elements of war.
Historical. If you love film noir,
watch
this. I don't recommend this to someone who only watches YouTube videos or whose introduction to film was the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, it's gonna bore you. It is, but it's not the film's fault. It's the fast pace of the world we live in now.
Yes,
that's all.
Like, honestly, I don't know if I'd recommend this to your little sister Abigail.
She might find this boring, but you bet your ass I'm gonna be like, you should watch this film.
And it's unfortunate that I can't recommend it to younger viewers because a lot of people just will find it dull.
But nostalgia is coming back in a big way.
It is.
So maybe there might be this kind of niche group of people that love nostalgia. Recommendations for this one. If you love nostalgic, I mean really going far back, classic. Always give the classics a try. And I would say this has popped in my head. If you're a film student, if you're studying cinematography, if you're studying the art of filmmaking, this is a great one to do some sort of project with.
That's a good point. I recommend this to, if you like black and white films, if you like that visual look that comes with film noir or golden age cinema, like this is a prime example of how beautiful some of these movies can be.
Yeah.
The way they play with light and shadow.
They didn't have colors to play
perfectly. It's immaculate. How would you make this today?
It's your fault. It really is. I would go with probably Victor and Ilse's story. I would twist it and turn it where the story with Rick is a small part of their love story. I would start with when they met, when they fell in love, how they got torn apart. Rick's would only be like a 15-minute blip, how they got to Lisbon, how they got to America, maybe where they are now. If she checked up on Rick, if she checked up on what happened in Morocco and Casablanca.
I would never retell this story the way it is here. I think this is absolutely perfect the way it is. However, if I were to see something done with Casablanca now, I would either approach it from telling the story in a very different perspective like that, or I would like many other things these days, I would tackle it as a limited series and do the whole story start to finish, heavily embellished on, like build upon what's there and just fully flesh out every moment in its entirety to really make it impactful,
to really sell it home.
I would probably still use this structure as the jumping off point, but then the way that we have that one big flashback sequence, I would have several throughout the series that like told you more of Ilsa and Victor's backstory and like really built upon their relationship. I'd even probably follow them to America.
Yeah.
That's probably how I would do it if I had to, but I don't think it ever should be done. Is this exploitation or other?
No. This is not.
you're right. It's not exploitation. This is definitely other. It's a film noir romance. I won't deny that a lot of film noirs and stuff probably showed in grindhouse cinemas at some point, but I don't think
this one was.
Much more lower budget ones, for example.
Like Dick Tracy.
Don't even get me started. Do you have any other thoughts on this film?
Nope. Glad we covered this one. I'm glad we went far back in classics. I'm ready to come back to a little bit more modern. This one and Meet Me in St. Louis, not gonna lie, classics, hard to get through.
Yeah, I think that it was really nice to come back to this film after so many years. It's definitely one I've wanted to revisit, and I'm glad that we did. I've definitely gained a much deeper appreciation for the film as well as the actors in it and the performances and honestly every element.
Yeah.
But I think our discussion has come to an end.
John.
Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned for the coming attractions.
John Carpenter's The Fog.
This is KB Antonio Bay. Stevie Wayne here, and let me be the first to wish Antonio Bay a happy birthday. We're 100 years old today, and keep a watch out for that fog bank heading in from the east.
100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something unknown came out of the fog. Now it has returned.
Oh, Jesus.
100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something unnatural came out of the fog. Now it has returned. 100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something evil came out of the fog. Now it has returned.
Who's there?
The fog.
Antonio Bay has a curse on it. We're all cursed.
There's no water getting here, but something awful cold, Pete.
I think I'll go to Vancouver now.
Where's the fog now?
Well, it should be right outside my door now.
Oh, there's something different about this fog. Dan, stay away from the door! Someone listen to me!
Get inside and lock your doors. Close your windows. There's something in the fog. Stay away from the fog. From the creator of Halloween, the ultimate experience in terror and suspense. John Carpenter's The Fog, starring Adrienne Barbeau, Jamie Lee Curtis, John Houseman, Janet Leigh as Kathy Williams, and Hal Holbrook as Father Malone. The Fog. What you can't see won't hurt you. It will kill you. Between midnight and 1, it will find you.
We're here, Leah.
We're here.
We are doing a John Carpenter movie.
Oh, God, this is probably the happiest day of your life. I do not know what you just watched. All I know is Jamie Lee Curtis is in this movie, and there's fog. I don't know anything. This is a blind one for me.
This is one of my favorite of John Carpenter's filmography. I very much enjoy this film for what it is. I have a lot of factoids and tidbits that I know about it that most others won't.
He's so excited.
John Carpenter is one of my favorite directors of all time.
So while we're watching this, are we going to have the John Carpenter special? Do you need to go down to Cumbies and grab us a pack of cigarettes? And do I need to crack open the wine?
No.
Do we need to sit here and be like, yeah, let's watch this film?
I mean, I think you might like it for what it is.
I like Jamie Lee Curtis. I've always liked her movies. It's sad to say, growing up, one of my favorite movies is Freaky Friday.
Oh, God.
Then he made me watch Halloween. Total opinion change. And I was very surprised at some of the factoids that you've told me about this film. And that I found out about this film. Even though I know nothing about this film. I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. I don't know what you watched. I'm not watching the trailer. I'm just gonna turn it on. So, yeah. Total blind reaction, Shawn.
I think it's going to be a fun one. I hope it's going to be a fun one.
I hope so.
That wraps up this episode. If you want movie recommendations, coffee recommendations, if you want to check out our film collection, see some behind the scenes, or just chat with us, find us on Facebook and Instagram at Grindhouse Podcast. We are on Twitter at GrindhouseCast. Go chat with Leah on our Discord, also at Grindhouse Podcast.
Yeah.
If you're listening to us, give us 5 stars on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your morning fix. New episodes release first thing every Monday morning. If you're just listening to the podcast and you'd like a more visual experience, subscribe to us on YouTube, where you can get every single episode in its entirety with video.
Hi, Dad. I don't even know if he knows I have a podcast yet.
If you like what we're doing and you want to show us some support, you can find all that information down below. We have a Patreon with, I think, some fun little reward tiers that...
I'm really excited about the Patreon reward tiers. We actually just got those solidified a little while ago.
And I think it gives you a chance to help us out and get some really cool extra stuff that I think you're going to like.
Yeah.
Until next week, I'm Shawn.
And I'm Leah.
Thanks for listening, and keep watching.
The shocking nature of many scenes in this film, it is definitely not recommended for the squeamish.